Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Overview of Macola 10.4. We know your time is valuable, and so we appreciate you sharing some of it with us today. Now, with that said, I'd like to introduce Dan Griffin, our Director of Product Management and Product Marketing.
All right, thanks, Nick. I appreciate the introduction here. So let's just go ahead and kick off the webinar, which we're doing here as an overview of Macola 10.4. So we're just going to give a quick overview here, some background. We'll talk about the history of Macola 10, and then, of course, what's in this latest release, 10.4. We were excited to get that out the door on, let's see, it was the 30th. It was right before the July 4th weekend. Then we'll turn it over to Dave Dozer, who is our Senior Product Manager, and we'll talk about some of the deeper details of the release. So what I want to talk about is the power of information. So 10.4, as you guys may have heard me say before, 10.4 is a lot about information and the power of information and how information can really lead to better decisions. When we take a look at some of the features in this release, you'll see what I mean. So let's take a look at some of the companies out there that are really showing the value of information. So the world's largest taxi company owns no vehicles. That's Uber, right? So they're not a taxi company in the truest sense of the word. They're an information company. The world's most popular media firm creates no content, and that's Facebook. The world's most valuable retailer has no inventory, and that's Alibaba. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Alibaba, but they're a Chinese, I would almost call them a broker, but they're or a market maker, maybe would be another word for that. And the world's largest hospitality provider owns no real estate. And this is one of my favorites. This is Airbnb, and I'm an Airbnb customer. Have used them several times. And actually read an article about Airbnb recently in Fast Company magazine. And that article in Fast Company magazine was talking about the growth that they've seen over the last 6 or 8 years. And so when you take a look at this chart, let's see, it's not coming up for me here, Nick. There it goes. So when you take a look at this growth chart of where they've come over the last several years, it's literally skyrocketed. And now they've just surpassed 2 million rooms that they have in their inventory. And actually, when I read that article, I wasn't sure if 2 million was a lot or if that was, on par with some of the other big guys. So I did a little research that 2 million is actually the size of the next 3 combined. So if you look at who are the big 3 players in the space, it's the Marriott group, it's Intercontinental, and it's Hilton. And if you combine all 3 of them, it's about 2 million rooms. And so this information company that owns no real estate is now by far leading the market in worldwide room inventory. If you haven't used Airbnb, by the way, feel free to check them out. I think it's a really great system. I've used it several times now. So before we get to 10.4, and as I said, 10.4 is sort of centric around the value of information, let's take a quick look back at where we've come. And so for those of you that got on the Macola 10 bandwagon early, you've been a part of this. And for those of you who have are still investigating it or thinking about it, or maybe you purchased recently, then you sort of get the benefit of this maturity process right out of the gate. But when we introduced 10.0, it was June of 2014. And at that time, it was the first time that we had introduced a fully integrated product, as well as the first time that we had introduced all-inclusive packaging. And so, we made that really big transition at that time, and we took the core ERP products, your distribution and your manufacturing and your accounting. We combined that with the business process management that was offered in Synergy, and that contained your workflows, your document management. We also added in the features from Exact Event Manager, which gave us automation capabilities. And at that time, we had also introduced, or maybe I guess you could say piloted, or I've been trying out of the market something called Navigator, which was our first stab at workspaces. So we took that together and we built this first stab at an integrated product in June of 14. As we progressed, through the next 18 months, we really began to focus on the web services model. The idea that you could take any process and offer it as a web service, not only that could be used internally to the product, but also that could potentially be exposed externally as an API. So we did lots and lots of maintenance web services at the beginning, and then we began to also tackle transactional web services like order entry and accounts payable. As we progressed on into 10.2 and 10.3, we added the ability to launch those web services from workflows. We added an all-new mobile app. First, we rolled it out for iOS and then later for Android. Grid-based data entry was something that we added, I believe, in 10.3, or maybe it was 10.2. I'm losing track now, which just allows the data entry to be so much faster and cleaner when you do it in a grid instead of going page by page. We also rolled out Spanish support as well as Windows 10 support. So the last 18 months have been transformational for our sort of foundational product now that is Macola 10. Now the neat thing is that I believe that we're gaining velocity at a really rapid pace. But before we get into the next slide, or before we get into the next portion here about 10.4, I want to take a minute to do a quick poll. So Nick's going to key that up for us here, and the question is what Macola functionality do you use the most? So if you guys will take just a few seconds to offer us your opinion. All right, this is pretty cool. You guys aren't seeing this, but as we're watching this in real time, at least I don't think you can see it. We're watching it in real time here as the percentages are changing. And it looks like it's kind of settled in here. 86% of you have voted, and finance is the winner. So that's where most of you are spending your time, is in finance, and then distribution and workflow / document management, I would say are roughly tied for second place. But that's good to know, and actually. I think that aligns with where we're putting a lot of our focus too. And Dave will actually talk about some accounting enhancements. We'll talk about costing by location is one of the items that we've got in the release. And so for those of you spending a lot of time in accounting or in the financial packages, that'll be good news. All right, so let's get into the meat here of 10.4. So what's in 10.4? Workspaces 2.0, and this is kind of an overview, and Dave's going to give you some demos as well as some of the lower level things as well. So Workspaces 2.0, we introduced Workspaces, as I said a few minutes ago, about 2 years ago in the form of a product called Navigator. And Workspaces were meant to be sort of an interactive dashboard where you could set up custom views, and we've taken that now to the next step. And so we're calling it Workspaces 2.0. We're integrating it more tightly with Synergy. We're adding in a lot more usability. I don't know if you guys, they're not so popular anymore, but there used to be pages like My Yahoo and My Google where you could set up your stock quotes and your weather forecast, your news feed, and all this, and kind of set up a homepage of what mattered to you. And that's really what we're going for here, is the ability for an average business user to be able to build the workspace that matters to them quickly and intuitively. Dave will demonstrate some of that, I believe. I think we have a demo on that anyway, for Workspaces 2.0. If we don't, and Nick is nodding that yes, we do have a demo, so that's good. But I also want to point out, and Nick will give you the address for this later, that we have some really great YouTube videos that have been released in the last few weeks that I think you guys will get a lot of value out of. Web services, we've begun to build more and more transactional web services. This release we did shop floor control and forecasting. IFRS, which is the International Financial Reporting Standard, that's used by a lot of countries around the world. It's just a different accounting standard, much like we use GAAP in the U.S. And so we now have a first pass, a phase 1 at IFRS support in 10.4. Automated workflows, or we also call that sometimes conditional statements, workflow conditional statements. Maybe you've heard it called something like validator. The idea here is that you can set up essentially different paths. So in your workflows, if you say if it's an approval for an invoice and if it's less than $5,000, just go straight to the person that owns that invoice. If it's greater than, then maybe you go to the CFO first for approval. So you can set up these if-thens and these different directions based on criteria. Next is financial consolidation. This is a pretty powerful piece of functionality that we're now rolling into 10.4. The ability to take financials from different parts of your Macola system, or even outside of your Macola system. If you have another ERP or accounting package that you want to be able to bring in data from, you can roll that all together into one consolidated view and even display it in the currency that you choose. So a really powerful way to get that overall view of your system. Next, we've got a couple of integrations. Integration with business intelligence tool, which is ClickView. We're calling that Exact Insights powered by ClickView. And also integration with Forecast Pro. And so for both of those tools, the connector is included with 10.4. Now the tool itself, of course, is not included, but the connector to those tools is now integrated into 10.4. And last but not least, and I think this is really exciting, 10.4 has 51 total enhancements in this release. And Dave will give you a quick rundown of some of those categories that these 51 fell into. But as I said, I think we're gaining velocity and really doing some exciting things with these releases. The next slide here is all about where we're getting the items that we're adding in, right? Who's making these decisions, and why are we going the direction that we're going? Well, of course, some of it is market centric, and we're keeping up and competing in the market and doing what we believe is necessary in the market. But another huge portion of that is what you guys are telling us. Through support calls, we have a customer advisory board, a partner advisory council, and we have a yearly roadmap feedback session at our Evolve show. And, those are incredibly valuable to us, getting feedback directly from you guys. In fact, we did this feedback session at Evolve every year. And so in Evolve 15, about a year and a half ago, or year and 3 months ago, we did our session, and as part of that, we came up with this list of items, and we stack ranked those through an exercise with the people that were there, and we ended up coming up with a list of our top 10 items out of that session. A year later, at Evolve 2016, when Dave and Derek and I went back to Evolve, what I thought was really impressive was that we could say that 9 out of the top 10 that we had come up with a year earlier were now either in the product in 10.4 or in the very short-term roadmap. So we're definitely listening, and we want you guys to know that. So if you do have those kind of pieces of feedback, please relay those to us. Come to Evolve, participate in those sessions, and your feedback does matter. All right, so I think that gets us to our next poll. Nick's got that up here. So which feature are you most excited about? So I just did a quick rundown. If you guys will give us some feedback here about what excites you the most about what's coming up in 10.4. Man, right out of the gate here, Workspaces 2.0 is doing real well. Business intelligence getting some love there. Looks like it's about leveled off there. We'll go ahead. Well, no, people still voting. All right, so Nick's going to go ahead and end that. Wow, that's really interesting. So Workspaces came out of the gate with a really strong lead, but then as the seconds ticked by there, you guys started voting for automated workflows and business intelligence. So with almost exact division between those three. So that's pretty fascinating. I wouldn't have guessed that. So I really thought business intelligence was going to win. Actually, that was my prediction. So I wasn't wrong. I just wasn't completely right. Excellent. So thanks for that feedback, guys. Let's go on now to Dave's part. So you guys, Dave Dozer, you probably know, has been around the Macola ecosystem for over a decade as an Exact employee, as one of our top consultants. He's worked for Macola partners. He's worked for Macola customers. He's done independent consulting. So he's definitely knowledgeable about this space, and now is our senior product manager for Macola 10. So I'll turn it over to Dave and let him take it away.
Excellent. I appreciate the introduction there, Dan. That makes it sound like I've worked here for 20 years with all of that, I think. So we'll jump right into the meat and potatoes here. I think based on the poll there, I'm glad that we're pulling the curtain here with Workspaces 2.0, as that's going to be one of the big ones and one of the things that we're most excited about. I'm really glad to see that you guys are excited about it as well. We'll cover some of the highlights here, and then we've got a couple quick demos. We're going to show around the new enhancements to the workspaces as well. Now, we did pre-record these just to make sure we didn't run into any technical issues with the webinar here. But so hopefully it'll go pretty smooth. So just kind of to cover what workspaces were and what they are today. There's still 42 out-of-the-box role-based workspaces, but every one of those has been touched with this release as well to add new functionality around multi-division support and consolidation of divisions. So, you know, the existing ones, if you're used to the ones that you've been using today, you're going to be able to continue to use those, and everything will be good with those. But again, we've tried to make enhancements just to those out-of-the-box ones. But on top of that, we've added the ability to create your own workspace. You know, one of the sort of caveats to the workspaces was you could make your own, they were configurable, but there wasn't really this design your own from scratch type of interface, and we've added that, so now each and every user is going to have that ability to go in and see just the information that they want to see, and basically put the Lego pieces together to make your workspace whatever you want it to be. We've also added the ability to perform certain transactions as a menu item as well. So in the past, you could launch screens, configure your menu to launch you know, other web pages, other transactional screens, anything you wanted to, but you always had to go to another screen if you wanted to perform that transaction. We've now added a menu type that allows you to perform a back office type transaction right from the workspace menu. And then finally, we've kind of expanded what the whole concept of workspaces are, and we've added the configurable menus on the transactional screens as well. So like when you're doing a quote or an order, or even on the item master screen, you've now got the ability to set up configurable menus on those screens as well. So we're really taking it past what traditionally was workspaces and really making it a whole concept that permeates throughout the whole system. So if we go ahead and take a look at the next slide here, the first thing we're going to demo is doing a transaction. So you'll see here, we're on our home page. So we're going to come up and navigate out to our, see our sales by rep here. So we see on here, I've got an order, order number 95 there that's on credit hold. So previously I'd have to go to another screen if I wanted to release that from credit hold and go through the whole credit hold release process. But I've now got the ability to just be able to click on that and go in and release order. So it's still going to prompt me and do the check. Do I want to do this? Yes, I'm sure I want to do this. So now order number 95 is released. I can say okay, and I'll refresh my workspace here. So now we'll see 95 is now just a regular booked order. So rather than going to credit hold release, I was able to do that right from a workspace menu there without bouncing back and forth between different screens or having to leave my workspace at all. Okay, we'll go ahead and pop over to the next slide here. Okay, so now we're going to customize our homepage with the workspace widgets, which is one thing that we're really excited about with the new release here. So you'll see there's lots of different types of widgets that we have the ability to add to our homepage now, to our workspace. So I'm going to come in and go down to report, and I'm going to add a new Macola web part. So when this comes up, the first thing I'm going to be asked here is what division do I want this widget to tie back to? So when I've got multiple divisions, I can pick a specific division and tie that web part back to that division and mix and match so I can see maybe sales data, all sorts of different things from multiple divisions. Now I'm going to say what module I'm going to pick here. So I'm going to go with sales, and let's just look at year-over-year revenue. I can give it a title here. So now I'm going to see a little web part graph that's year-over-year sales for Division 001. Now, if I scroll down here, we see it added that web part. But the really cool thing here is now I've also got my actionable menus that have made the workspaces so popular, and I've got that ability to do the same menu configuration that I would have on a larger static type of workspace. But now you'll see I have the ability to resize that item, so I can lay it out however is aesthetically pleasing to me, if I need it bigger, smaller. And now I'm going to drag that up to the top here. You'll see I can range and I can build that workspace however I want it to be. So I'm no longer relegated to a certain out-of-the-box type of workspace. Me as a user can go in and arrange it and mix and match however I want that to be. So very excited about that and the other workspace additions that we've added in as well. So hopefully you guys get a chance to go out and download 10.4 and take a look at some of the new enhancements around workspaces. So next we'll talk a little bit about financial consolidation. We don't have a hands-on demo to show for this one because it's a pretty large process. But if you want to go ahead and take a look at some of the bullet points here, just wanted to cover what this really means for your business, especially since I know I don't think this one got much love in the excitement category, but I'm going back to what functional areas folks are using. I think everyone has some need for accounting and the voting to substantiate that. So what the financial consolidation is really allowing you to do is within Macola 10, take multiple back office divisions. So maybe it's different currencies, different countries, but essentially it's going to allow you to map multiple accounts from your different divisions into a master account. So you can set up very complex mappings. Then you're going to be able to aggregate that data all up into one master P&L and balance sheet. And you're going to have a lot of different options to report against that, translate the different currencies. So if you need to do a consolidation currency, you have the ability to do intercompany journal entries as well as do your elimination entries as well to create those consolidated statements. The other really cool thing about it too is it does not necessarily have to be a Macola back office as well. There, as Dan alluded to earlier, there is the ability to import transactions, basically anything you can get into a CSV file or a flat file can be imported in. So even if it's QuickBooks, if it's some other application that maybe a subsidiary is running, you can still roll that up and perform your financial consolidation in Macola. All right. So next one, this is a what I call a small big enhancement. It's one that we're calling out here specifically because on the screen, when we do the little demo here, there's not a whole lot that we're showing necessarily, but the impact of it is pretty large. So as part of an ongoing effort to put true multi-site MRP in place, there's a lot of foundational things that we need to do. And one of those was the ability to be able to track a standard cost by location and item, not just at the item level. So previously, you only had the ability to maintain and do your cost roll-up and keep that cost master per item. So regardless of where you were manufacturing that item, the standard cost was going to be the same. So we now added the ability to have a different standard cost per location, per finished good. So we've got a quick demo to run through on this one. You'll see here, I'm on my inventory workspace here, so I'm just going to go out to my maintain cost master, and I'm just going to pick an item here. Okay, pull up my BCAB assembly, and you'll now see there's a location field available. So I can now tie this item to a location. Save that here. And so what that's going to let me do then is per location, I'm going to be able to maintain that standard cost and roll that cost per each location. Now there's still the ability to turn this off. So if it's not something you want to do, we're not forcing you to do it, but that ability is now there. So you're going to be able to do a cost master per each item and location. So I think we'll go ahead and pop over to the next slide here.
I'm not sure if Dan's coming through clearly, but we did have a question from one of the attendees. How does this impact impact other than standard cost, an average?
So the impact on that is specifically to standard costs. So essentially, if you're looking at shop floor, for instance, when you're manufacturing that item at that particular location, that's the standard cost that's going to be used. So then as the average and the standards get accumulated per that location, when you do that roll to actual material cost, that's going to be based on the location and the production that's happened in that location. So that's sort of how those are impacted. So, you know, and definitely if we need to get more into that, there's additional info in the release notes around that as well. Were there any other questions, Nick, before we head over to the next slide?
Yeah, so we also have some questions about BOM by location, and how does that play in with standard costing?
So the kind of next phase of this is being able to maintain the BOM by location, and those will start to tie together as we move forward. So right now it is standalone in that you know, the BOM still can be tied to a location, but then can still be manufactured in a location. So as far as the standard costing itself is concerned, that's still going to be rolling per the actual cost at that location. So right now it's not tying back to the BOM or any kind of product routing at this point, but that's the BOM side of it is a future enhancement as well. Okay, and we'll go ahead and keep moving forward here. And again, if additional questions come in, we'll make sure to try to get all of those addressed. So this is one that we didn't necessarily call out on the slide earlier with the big enhancements, but there's been some changes made to how the customer synchronization works in Macola 10. So we'll give an example of that right here. So I'm going to go in and create a new customer. And if you've been using 10, this screen looks should look pretty familiar to you. It's the standard entry screen for an account, but as we put some data in here, we're going to have some things. Okay, there we go. So we're going to put in some test data here, and if you've been running 10 in the past, or you know, if you're on a previous version of it, there was a time period between putting the customer in and that synchronizing and being able to use that on a quote or an order or anything like that. So we're going to put in our state. Now you'll also notice I'm adding some additional information here, payment condition that's mandatory here for me. And I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen here, and things like salesperson, you'll see customer type on there, some other fields that previously were not available until after that synchronization process ran, and you had to drill down into an additional screen. So now all that's been consolidated into one screen. I can save, and you know, I'm taken back to my page here. What you'll notice is now I can immediately go in to orders and say, put in a new quote. And that EM 10.4 test customer is ready to use right now, so I can save it. And got my new line, so there was no sort of delay there. And I'm able to put in all that information at once And essentially what's happening then is that data is going from the front office and back office concurrently without any sort of synchronization. Finally, want to take a look at here, if I'm running multi-division, I've got the ability now to come down and just quickly add this customer to another division as well, without necessarily having to drill into to another screen or anything like that. Okay, I think we're good there. This one we want to talk through. This is another one that it looks like folks were excited about in the poll and the automated workflows. Now, if you're familiar with how the workflow engine works today in Macola 10, there is a robust set of rules that can be utilized to dictate how the workflow is going to get routed. Things like you can have it go to the manager of the item that's on the request, the manager of the customer account that's on the request, maybe a role or a group of people. So for instance, maybe a new request for quotation comes in from a customer and it goes to a pool of people who are responsible for doing that. So before this release, you'd have to have all those people in that role, and then go out and pull the information out, or I'm sorry, assume the request. But now what we can do with the workflow rules and the workflow validator is you have the ability now to actually create your own custom rules on how a workflow gets routed. So basically anything you can come up with. So if it's a certain location, a certain product category, anything like that, you can add the conditional rules to then route to that person or people that should be responsible based on those rules that you made up. Now, the other thing that the new rules engine allows us to do as well is set up our own rules on fields. So previously, if you added free fields, for instance, to a workflow request, there were some certain validations that you'd be able to set it up to do, but if you wanted to do something custom, that was not available. And that's the other thing that's been added, is now on the certain or specific fields on a workflow, you can create your own custom validation rules. So it's taken what was already, something that we were very pleased with the workflow engine, and making it just that much more robust. Okay, and now the other one that I think folks were excited about here, and that's business intelligence. And that's what Dan was mentioning, Exact Insights, powered by ClickView. So business intelligence is something that's kind of been around for a while, but I think is becoming more and more prevalent in our industry. And so we've seen a need for having true business intelligence, and business intelligence and reporting are really two very different things that sometimes get lumped in together. But BI really lets you take data to a next level, and tie it into what Dan was talking about in the introduction about being an information company. I think for our customers, it's more and more important to be able to not just collect data, but be able to see that data, visualize it, make really well-informed decisions on that, and also understand how that data relates. And what we've tried to do with ClickView is bring that to you. And so we integrate seamlessly with Click through the Exact Insights, and have some out-of-the-box documents that can be used with Click as well. But it's really going to let you see and take that data to the next level. And we've got a little demo around Click here as well. Sorry, before we jump into that, we just wanted to kind of answer the question of sort of why we decided to partner with Click, and when we were looking for BI tools to utilize. And you'll notice just this is the Gartner Magic Quadrant there. In the leaders category, there's really three folks: Tableau, Microsoft, and Click. So we evaluated those guys, and we like the ease of use of Click, but also they've done a good job of metering usability along with security and scalability, and do a lot with in-memory processing. And it was just a really good fit, and we really wanted to bring best of breed type of solution to our BI solution. So we'll jump into the demo here. Okay, so from my workspace here, I'm just going to pop out to my sales analysis, which we've got hooked up to our exact insights document here. So you'll see this is just kind of our out-of-the-box view here, and we can jump around to some different visualizations of the data. So if we go to analysis, you'll see we've got a nice little bar chart there. We can go over to history. Okay, so you'll see we're back on our summary page here as well. And we've got all sorts of different types of analysis. So now let's say we want to start drilling down into that data. So I want to see all this by a particular state. So I can switch to Ohio, and everything updates to Ohio. So maybe I want to switch to, let's say New York here. So now I can see that as well. So I can quickly and easily switch back and forth between different pieces of data. And what that does then is update everything in this document to reflect the selections that I've made. Oh. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going here. Okay, and the next integration that we're working on here is forecasting. Yep. Okay, so, and this is an integration with the Forecast Pro product. So what this allows us to do is seamlessly integrate information from your back office into Forecast Pro to do advanced analytics and forecasting. So it's going to help with the material planning process, the sourcing of materials. Forecast Pro has been around for quite a while, and they've got a history of forecasting and have very advanced algorithms that will take the historical data and kind of machinate on that to give you an accurate forecast. And what we've done as well is added an object that will let you, once that forecast is completed, to pull that information back into Macola to be consumed by MRP, and that way you're going to be able to do very accurate planning moving forward. So let's go ahead, and we've got a quick little demo to go along with Forecast Pro here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch my Forecast Pro import-export utility. What this is going to allow me to do is just go out and select what reporting calendar I want to use. And I've got some other filters that are available to me as well. So if I want to only see the item usage history from a certain date range, I can do that, or even filter down to location, specific customer. So there's a lot of different options here. So what I can do from there is then download that export file. And then I'm going to pop open Forecast Pro and import that file that we just created from Macola. Now, what that's going to do is take all that historical usage data and let me work on that in Forecast Pro. So you've got all sorts of different options in Forecast Pro to be able to add different visualizations to the screen, lay that out, do your forecasting. It'll do a lot of things automatically, but you have the ability then to also make changes to the forecast as well. And when you're all done with that, you're going to be able to export that back out. And we're just going to save that as a XML file here. So after we've done our complete forecast, Forecast Pro, we're going to save that off. Now we can go back to our import-export program in Macola 10 here. And now we're going to go out and we can say for this specific calendar, we want to import the file that we just generated. And we're in business. And it looks like there was a question coming in here regarding Forecast Pro. And the question was, can we integrate Forecast Pro if we don't use MRP? You can still utilize Forecast Pro if you want to be able to look at those forecast orders. Obviously, you get the most benefit out of that if you are using MRP, because then the planning is going to consume that and create your requirements. But what you're going to get back out of Forecast Pro is forecast type orders back in Macola, so you could use that for reporting and even doing your own sort of forecasting and looking at it that way as well. So there's nothing that you're not required to use MRP, I should say, to use Forecast Pro. Okay. We'll move on to the next slide here. And as we saw, we're talking about Forecast Pro. We're talking about Exact Insights powered by Click. So we just want to kind of highlight some of the other third-party solutions that are a little bit newer to the fold now, Click being one of them, and Forecast Pro. We also recently partnered with Avalara for sales tax, and we've introduced F9 for financial reporting as well, for doing your own custom financial reports and things like that. So part of the strategy moving forward is definitely continue to pursue third-party relationships to really create the best solution that we possibly can and create the best offering that we can. So we'll talk a little bit to kind of round out the presentation here about the roadmap and where we're looking forward with Macola. So there's some very high level things that we want to go through, but first I think we want to jump in and just take a little bit of a poll here and get a bead for the kinds of things that you guys are interested in moving forward. So we'll let Nick kick off the poll here, because we're going to say there's a lot of things on the roadmap, and we're looking at things like parametric configurators, sales and operations planning tools, integration of service management, adding additions to multi-site MRP, and more pieces for IFRS support. So if you guys just want to take a second and kind of vote on where, if you had to pick one, where the most interest is. Okay, and it looks like the votes are coming in here, and the sales and ops planning tool looks like it's taken a heavy lead with service management right behind it there. So that's very interesting. So if almost half were interested in kind of a basic sales and ops planning, and then service management was pretty heavy as well. So that was kind of a lead in here for the next slides here, where we want to go moving forward with Macola. I won't necessarily read through every one of these, but as we're moving the development of Macola 10 platform forward, everything we're doing falls into one of these large buckets or high-level categories. So as we move to a fully web-enabled zero-footprint client focused on mobility and responsiveness, the things we saw today with workspaces were just sort of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, and we want to keep doing more and more around workspaces and what that means. Again, internationalization, IFRS, and we're always focused on core enhancements and customer request, and trying to continue to take that feedback, solicit that feedback, and incorporate that into the Macola product. And if we move on here to my next slide, these are kind of the more granular things that we're looking at as far as the immediate, mid-range, and future of the product. You'll notice the things in the immediate category are all things that were just released in 10.4. And then as we get into mid-range and future, those are a little more subject to change. But then at the bottom there's a lot of things that we consider ongoing, such as continually adding additional web services, multi-site MRP. We're making some big architectural changes under the hood. And then always customer requests are very important to us as well. As you see, we've got a lot of things on the docket as we move forward, and as we try to make a much more robust product. So that was my portion there, and we'll see if there's some questions coming in or.
Yeah, there's at least one question that I saw come in here around the Click offering and the integration with Macola 10.4. The question was, does it come with it? Is it an additional license? and then secondarily, what version is supported. It is an additional license. ClickView is not a freebie. We can, so we actually do have, so we sell that under an exact brand, or you can buy it under the ClickView brand, up to you. We do have a starter pack, which comes with, I think it's like 5 document view licenses of various types. I'd have to go back and look at that package. But it does, it is a starter pack, so it's priced at an introductory level. But yeah, that is additional. The second portion of that question was what version is supported. Dave, do you happen to know what version of ClickView is supported? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Let's see, who was that is asking? Do we have a?
Yeah, I'd have to go and check on that because I know all the development was done in the most recent version, so we'll have to double check how far back, how far back that would be compatible.
That's asked by the IT department at Good to Grow, so we can get back with those guys on that answer if we need to.
Yep, we definitely can.
Does this replace EBA? It does not necessarily replace EBA if you want to continue using EBA. This is just another alternative. It's certainly a more current product. They're one of the best out there, Click. So if you're already using EBA, you can certainly do that. But Click is more of the direction that we're going in 2016.
And I think we're about, we got a little bit of time, so we're getting out early today, but we just want to thank everyone again for sharing your time with us. We know there's very little time in the day, so we appreciate you sharing it with us. And again, we'll be sending you a follow-up email with some additional information. On behalf of Exact Macola, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.